Hello everyone, welcome to this channel, and this time we are back but not with normal technical content. This time we are doing a podcast, and as a first speaker, as a first guest today we have Anuj, who happens to be a very good friend of mine, but he is doing wonders with his life. All his efforts that he has put up into the ecosystem of building communities, building products, leading teams who are delivering next billion user solutions. So this is a great opportunity to interact with Anuj, and thanks Anuj for joining this podcast. This happens to be probably our first podcast that we are doing, and I couldn't find anyone better to kickstart this series. So thanks a lot for giving your time and joining this event.
Of course. Thanks a lot, Avirup. I think it's been an honor to be here. I think you were kind enough to say great things, but I think doing my bit in this world where working together with the ecosystem, working together with technology. I think that's something which is super close to my heart, and I believe that we all can put our hearts together to make this a better world. So I think I'm honored to be here and then interacting with you on your first podcast.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks, Anuj. Thanks a lot. And it will be great for the world to also know like what exactly you do, how we have, how we have amended a lot of lives, how we have worked with a lot of startups in the past, how we
Yeah.
have taught a lot of people. So we'll eventually get into all the storylines.
Yes.
So to begin with, like the whole point of having this podcast is to understand the technological shift that is happening within the ecosystem for the past, let's say, 10 to 15 years from like as of now. And I would say the past 5 to 6 years has been an exponential shift that has happened. Like
Yeah.
IoT, AI, Industry Revolution 4.2, and now we are into 5.0 sector. A lot of things are changing every now and then. Every day, something or the other is launching new. So, how do you see this change that has happened? How do you see it has impacted everyone?
Mhm.
So, yeah, over to you.
Of course, I think you mentioned it right. I think this technological shift that has happened. I think and I would probably even take it back further. That it's been happening. It's been happening for centuries now. I
Exactly.
think just to touch upon how we saw the technological shift that has happened. So um, going back, when we used to not have machines,
Yep.
we used to understand, how do we come up with coal, how do we come up with energy, how do we
Right.
function with our engines. Remember those days when
Yeah.
train used to run on a coal engine,
Yes.
right? So those were 1700s where we were still figuring it out, like how do we use technology to make our lives easier, right? And then slowly that drift happened towards, we saw from the coal sector, we went ahead and saw electricity coming in, right? And that was 1800s where we could probably use electricity to make our jobs easier. And then there is another shift happened in the 1900s where we now looking at computers. We were now looking at how couple of technology things are also helping us in our day-to-day lives, right? And then somewhere we also saw that there was network which was introduced, and then we are all
Exactly.
connected with a lot of things with internet, and that's where the 2000 era came,
Right.
where we were introduced to the internet. So I think there are 4 centuries where we have seen these four
Yes.
technological shifts that have happened so far. And and you know what? Somewhere when we are talking about fourth industrial revolution today, I don't think so. We are any longer in fourth industrial revolution. We are
Exactly.
already at the cusp of transitioning to the fifth industrial revolution,
Correct.
where we have and probably when I talked about these revolutions, right, Aviru, we also saw how much time it took for those revolutions to take place, right? It was
Right.
not easy. I think it took couple of years for computer to get adopted in the ecosystem, and then it took couple of years for the internet to get penetrated among the the rest of the world. And I think today also it's not 100% penetrated across the world. The internet is still doing maybe 70-80% over there. But
Right.
when we see AI, we talk about those shifts. And if I talk about just last couple of years, I think last 2.5 to 3 years we have been living in the fast forward, right? And then we saw how whatever you upskill yourself today becomes obsolete in the next 3 months. And then you try to see that shift happening. So I think the shifts have happened, and it has always happened for centuries. But the amazing part today with AI is that we are seeing this shift happening at a tremendous speed, the adoption happening even much faster. That has happened for the internet as well, right? So I think in terms of impact, I'm sure there are a lot of things that are getting impacted. I think at the end of the day, the technological shifts that have happened, it gives some leverage to people. It becomes a part of life of our day-to-day lives. And then somehow it also helps us ease a lot of things in everyday life. So I think the impact it creates is huge. But I think there's also the regulatory part of it, the responsible part
Right.
of it. We always also talk about.
Exactly.
I think we are at the cusp where we are no longer constrained by storage. We are no longer constrained by internet.
Right.
We are now talking about having the power of computation in your
Right.
hands, in your pocket. I think that's where the shift is happening. And with AI, I think it's going one step further.
Yep. And I like to just take a bit off track because when you mentioned,
Mhm.
like, I really like that word that you mentioned, that we are not constrained by storage, we are not constrained by the computation power.
Yeah.
Like, everything was a constraint previously. Let's just think about it. In the like early days when the space race was going on between Russia and US, Apollo
Yes.
computers, those are
True.
like, our cell phones are like 100 times more powerful, not even 100, probably like 1,000 times are more powerful than those computers that were responsible to putting man on the moon, right?
Yes.
The kind of shit that has happened has been immense. But here I would like to say, like, with all these things comes at a huge cost. And in this case, the cost is something which we kind of ignore at this point in time, not
Mhm.
totally take into account, and that is the cost of energy. The immense amount of power that is needed to run all
Yeah.
this shift, there's a huge energy consumption that is happening. And I, being from similar kind of background, and like, I have seen all these challenges on the first hand. Like,
Yes.
for example, if something, if probably if a new industry, fully automated industry is running, and there's a power cut, you just imagine what kind of devastation it can bring into the picture. And
Absolutely.
the demand of energy has also increased like exponentially. So do
Yeah.
you see something like, I know, like, from a consumer point of view, we usually don't face these issues, but from a manufacturer point of view, from a supplier point of view, and from a research point of view, like, do you feel like there are challenges specifically in the energy sector to sustain all this computational power?
Absolutely, Avirup, you touched a very delicate topic. The reason I say
Right.
that is the energy. So today also, when you are looking at, for example, let's talk about the power we have with AI, right? When you are looking at a AI tool, let's say Gemini or
Right.
ChatGPT, or any such tool, for example, it is basically using tokens. That it is only giving you that many tokens to process a
Right.
day. And
Right.
then there is a cap on how much seconds of video that you can generate, right?
Exactly.
So it is all a reflection of energy. And then we
Right.
are talking about responsibility. We are talking about regulations, because it's not just about the policy constraints. I think it's also about how do we sustain, and how do we become more meaningful in probably using those energy parameters, right? So I think, of course, it's the answer is yes. But
Right.
have we figured out? I don't think so.
I
I
don't
think
think so either.
we are I think taking baby steps towards it.
Yeah.
Take for example the Nvidia and Intel collaboration.
Exactly.
The talks huge about how the shift in the technology space. You got a leverage. You launched processors, but how to do it sustainably, and
Right.
how to reduce 70% of the waste that you are creating out of a particular innovation. So you have to be responsible enough, and then you have to sustain those efforts, right? So the answer is yes, but how do we figure out? I think the
Yeah,
world
we
is yet.
still are at a very infancy stage of figuring out the energy problem. I come from a background where we are dealing with a lot of like industrial IoT solutions. But
Yeah.
then again, when we visit a lot of these factories that is based out of India, we see they are still stuck in the very age-old machines, still doing things a lot manually. And when we just sit down and talk with the factory managers, they say like, yes, they want to digitize, they want to do this, they want to bring in AI, they want to bring in that. It all seems at the end of the day that they just want to modernize themselves, but they don't have any idea like what does this modernization even means. Like
Yeah.
what I have seen as a fundamental problem, I would say, is that people are ready to modernize things, but people are not ready to invest in having the solid digital foundation real ready. And that is
Mhm.
where I see a major challenge in today's industry when you are speaking specifically with respect to industry revolution 4.0 and 5.0 in together. Like leave 5.0, if you come down one step behind 4.0, you must have a solid foundation ready, then only components, digital components, AI components can be brought into the picture, and then only factories can be digitized or plants can be
Right.
digitized, right?
Right.
So but then people are not ready to understand that there is a foundation that needs to be there first, and then only you can build on top of it. So
Right.
like, do you
You're
have
right.
any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Avirup. I think, see, it's not just a matter of, you know, of course, there is an attitude of
Right.
getting things done, and then you have to catch up with the technology, and then you have to, some people probably might want to, just do a tick mark. We want to go
Exactly.
there, right? So I think one of the things which I believe is super, super important is getting your basics right, right?
Right.
Uh, there are a lot of fundamentals that needs to be looked at, and AI. See, people sometimes think about artificial intelligence as you're just okay, you have data and you are just using a formula to derive an insight out of it. No, that's not AI, right?
Right.
You probably want to go more further and then try to see that how it can help ease out your day-to-day stuff, and then how it
Right.
can take an action on your behalf, or how it can probably not just uh, modernize the system just for the sake of doing it, but actually helps you achieve what you want to do in the real world, right? I think that's where the whole it's a full life circle moment, right? Where you
Right.
start something and then it has to yield some result. Not
Right.
that you're doing it because you say that you are an AI company, right? And then
Exactly.
it happens so that because, and then look at multiple streams that we have. It's not just, if I talk about IoT, right? The Internet of Things, and then it has been there for a long time, and
Exactly.
there has been a lot of data. There has been a
Right.
lot of algorithm put to, a lot of formulas being put to. But I think we really needed to get that edge that it can probably take actions on your behalf, and probably it was
Right.
happening in some shape and form already,
Yep.
right? I
Remember
remember.
initial days when we were having the workshops, student
Yes.
yatra time.
Student Yatra, yes, I go back to those moments where we used to conduct Student Yatra, where
Yeah.
we used to travel to multiple colleges. I think we did travel to 15
Yeah,
universities
yeah.
and colleges
Around
across
that time.
to bridge that gap. And you know what? That was happening already. I remember coming to your home in Kolkata once, where
Yeah. Siliguri. Not
you
Kolkata, Siliguri.
Siliguri, yes.
Right.
Oh, I came to Siliguri, and you just gave a command to Alexa, and
Right.
Alexa is taking action on your behalf to control the temperature of your room, right?
Right.
And then it has been always there,
It
right?
has
And then
always been there.
yeah, it's just that we it got accelerated today because those models are giving you an edge towards
Right, right.
going something which is yeah, giving you an edge, right? And then
Yep.
that's where I feel the difference is, right? I think we probably realize the output of it today, but we don't realize the effort and input that goes into it,
Exactly. Right.
and that's where we somehow may not appreciate
Right.
what it has taken to get here. So yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly the point. Like even when you took up the concept of home automation, just at my house, like you
Yes,
cannot just bring in an Alexa device and expect it to control all the lights, right? You must have the capability to digitally control the lights first, and then
true,
only AI can just replace those electronic commands into more like a voice-based, natural language-based commands, right? So that
absolutely
foundation has to be there. If the foundation is missing, you cannot have anything running at the first place.
correct.
Just like your cell phone has an OS, your cell phone
Hmm.
has apps, and then on
Yes,
top of that you have AI, which is helping you to automate things. It's not just like it's not helping you building that foundation layer. So
absolutely not. Yes,
right.
yes, true, so true, so true. Yes,
Right. So, like over your time at Google as a as a part of the DevRel team, and now,
yeah,
I mean not now, previously you're also in the GFS program, Google for
yeah.
Startups. Do you think like Indian companies are focusing more on the foundational aspect of it, or more on the application side of it? Because the fundamental things that I see, the
Yeah.
challenging part, I would say, on the western side of the continent, like of the planet, like mostly US, Europe, they have a lot of foundational technology stacks that were built over the course of a lot of years. You just
Yeah.
take any example, take WhatsApp, then you take up Meta, you take up Google. All these were built on the west, and then we are building applications on top of those platforms. We are not
Yes.
building the technology as a whole, we are building applications on top of the technology. Do you
Yes.
think like we are focusing too much on the application layer and not too much into the like hardcore technical platform layer?
I agree, Aviru. What you just say. I think the sentiments are so likewise. The reason I say that is that I've worked on the startups program on accelerating like couple of
Right.
startups, couple of hundreds of startups in the past. And what I've seen is that the I think Google for Startup program has been functioning for about a decade now, right? And in multiple shapes and forms, there was a launch pad, and then we evolved into Google for Startups, and we also have accelerators today. What I believe is that even though we are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world,
Right.
fortunately, how many unicorns do we hit,
Exactly.
right? How many products which actually go ahead and change the real infrastructure out of it, right? So I feel that we have been talking too much on the application side of things.
Right.
A lot of innovation that has happened on the application.
Exactly.
Very less people have talked about okay, what are the infrastructural
Right.
changes? How do we bridge the physical gap? How do we bridge the how do we solve problems for something which is probably more hardware oriented, right? Because not everything is a software solution, right?
Exactly.
Uh, but there has been a shift, no doubt. I've
Yeah.
seen like probably in a batch of 20 startups, for example, we have seen a couple of startups, like one or two startups who are also coming along and putting some efforts there. But I think it's that like maybe 5 or 10% of the crowd. Rest of the crowd is still talking about at the application layer. Like for example, the accelerators that we run, not just for Google, right? There are a lot of other accelerators which are there in the ecosystem as well. Whenever we see applications coming from the startups, I think mostly it's like the application layer. The
Exactly.
foundational thing is something which is still yet to be figured out. And then we develop great applications, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
not.
we are the best, I would say, in that aspect of it.
Yes, amazing, amazing
Exactly.
applications. Yeah, they've probably gone ahead and then tried to.
We are known for delivering the best kind of applications, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we have kind of figured out that formula,
Right.
but I think we still I think there's a lot of room to cover in terms of how do we go ahead and
Build the
build some.
foundational technology block, I would say.
Exactly, build that foundational tech, and then try to build on top of it. Try to become more examples of it. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it's the infrastructure, or maybe it's the policy. It's maybe the government
A
schemes
lot.
which can go and bring that support, or maybe it's
Right.
the basic educational fundamentals that basically you happens at a very early stage. So I think there is a lot that has happened so far, and in fact, I would also like, I'll teleport you to my days where I was working with Intel. So I remember I was running a program with Government of India when I was working on a public-private partnership, where we had set up Atal Tinkering Labs. The idea was to bridge the innovation skill gap. The idea was to give access of technology early on in your career, early on in your age, so that you get exposed to technology and you can make informed choices in terms of how do you want to take your career forward. And not just there, if you find a problem in your community, in your local space, how do you use technology to go ahead and come up with some solution for that particular problem? So use technology to solve a problem,
Right.
rather, and it doesn't always have to be an application layer. It can be
Exactly.
something that is as fundamental as you know like, for example, I'll take an example. We were talking about drones, where drones will go ahead and save a person who is drowning in the ocean,
Right.
right? It was mostly the use case for fishermen, but the question is, do we have infrastructure for drones, right? Do
Exactly.
we can develop an application on top of it, which
Right.
might be cost effective, but when it comes to like huge hardware infrastructure, that's where
That.
I, the real struggles begin. Uh,
Exactly.
it might be a function of money, it might be a function of access, it might be a function of the interest.
Policies. Right. A lot of things does come into this part.
Actually, and then policies kick in, and then
Right.
a lot of other interest sectors kick in. But sad reality is there is a gap,
Yes.
and then the way to look at it is there's some progress which is happening. There are few people already taking step towards it, but I think there's a long way to go.
There's a long way to go. And I think unless until we figure out that foundational layer, we are always dependent on somebody else's foundation and build the application on top of that. So,
So true.
right.
Yes,
So
yes,
we are always dependent on that front. And that is where I see a lot of startups, they, since they're so much dependent on this foundational, like core foundational layer, if the foundation changes like all of a sudden, the
yes,
applications won't work out at all. Like uh, I see a lot of challenges out there, but yeah, I think people are kind of now drifting. They are focusing as well as on both on foundational layer as well as on the application layer. But yes, as you say earlier, it will take some time. And I
yes.
believe one another factor out here, it's
Mhm.
kind of a bit like debatable topic, but still just want to touch base about it. It's just that uh, it's all a matter of a risk taking attitude.
Yes, a
And
lot.
exactly. And risk taking attitude comes from both the angles, not only from the individual who is building something, but also
Hmm.
from the angle of the investors, like whether they want to invest on something which is not that much glamorous, which is
Yes,
not that much revenue generating from day one, but building the core foundation. And third, from a government perspective as well, like from the policy perspective, like whether they are ready to invest on those individuals who are ready to build those foundational things, which may not yield result because there are a lot of R&D effort that goes into the picture. And
yes,
I know like we differ a lot from this part, like we fundamentally don't have a very high risk taking attitude, which is good as well as bad. Good, like we don't lose that much because we always try to play it safe. Bad
yeah,
is that we are always stuck to some point. We are
right.
always bounded by some boundary conditions. Like, do you think like in the newer generation of startups, specifically from India, that is
Mhm.
changing now?
I think you're right. I think this risk taking attitude. I think it's anywhere you go. That is
Right.
super important. And then I think startup founders who are like I think they are the biggest risk takers.
Right.
Even if they are taking the risk at a the application layer of a problem
Right.
statement.
That
Uh,
is also a huge deal.
Exactly. But the appetite to take that risk is much higher when it comes to an application layer solution.
Right.
But when it comes to the foundational layer, I think risk taking attitude is a little it differs.
Opposite.
Yeah, the intensity goes a little down over there. And then you're right. It's not just the founder playing that role. I think there's a lot which happens. Like, for example, government has to come in. If there is a way, there is a policy and scheme which can come and help,
Right.
uh, you know, like put an air cover for a
Exactly.
startup. building something on that layer. I think that's something which is super interesting to see. And also on the investors and the VCs front, right? And I've seen a lot of VCs and investors who come forward, and then they definitely are looking for, of course, they're looking for the revenues and
Right.
the good numbers hitting the ground and all that. That's okay, but at the same time, are we really taking that, maybe at least 20% of the risks that you are taking? Like it's all a bet, right? You are taking a bet on a
Exactly.
company,
It's all a
whether,
bet.
yeah. So I think if we can probably have a little bit of attitude towards taking bet on a little extra margin of people who are building for that foundation. I know revenues are not going to hit anytime soon. It's going to
Right.
take it's going to be a heavy lift, and it's
Exactly.
going to take a lot of time in terms of building something which is which probably might come across something which is not very
Right.
conventional. So I think having that mindset, having that shift in the mindset, can also help us see a different ecosystem going forward.
Right.
I think, and the change will come. I
The
think.
change will
I
come.
think.
The change is
Yeah.
already here because there are startups like Agnikul. They're building
Yes.
rockets. Then there's another startup, Dhruva Aerospace. They are
Yes,
working
they
on
are
rocket
working on rocket.
engines.
Right. Right.
So the change is happening. It's just that uh, that's not a huge number, I would say. So
Yes.
they're still working on that part.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the accelerators, right? And
Right.
talking about the accelerators, look at the accelerators, for example, Y Combinator, and then
Exactly.
bunch of other players. They invest heavily in terms of
The
not only
foundational technology. They love this a
exactly.
lot.
That's where you see like whenever it happens big. So yeah.
Yep, that's good to know. So, like right now, I think as your T-shirt also says, you're in the Google search domain. So, how has the shift has been from your side? Like coming from a point of view that you are dealing with startups, you're dealing with a lot of community folks. I think both from Intel side as well as now, like previously at Google, now
Yeah.
to a fundamentally different block altogether. How does it feel, sir?
I think I think my story is very different. It's very unconventional,
Exactly.
and I think it's been a little over a decade that I have spent in my career, and then I have been very purposeful over the last few years that what is it that I really want to do in life. What is it that is giving more meaning to my work. And I believe the last 10 years that I've spent in the career, Aviru, you have witnessed that. I think we have worked on a lot of projects, a lot of hackathons together. We have been on the
Yes.
Intel Software Innovator side of things. We have been on the
Right.
GDG, the Google Developers
Yep.
Groups of the world. I think one thing which has stayed always true for me has been my mission towards, making this world a better place. I think, enabling people, empowering them, and then, and then try to, create something impactful, something meaningful in the world. I think that's one mission which I have always, stayed true with. And I think I was fortunate enough to get those opportunities along the way. When I was with Intel, we have been on the Intel software innovator side. We innovated a lot of things. Remember
Yep.
working on agree on IoT stuff, and then
Yes.
bunch of other
Yes.
projects together. The Android home automation,
Android
uh,
things, if you recall.
Android things
Yes.
exactly
We did a
back in
lot
the
of
days.
things. Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about like 10 years back,
Yeah.
and
Almost.
then when I saw all those opportunities coming along my way, it was always to how can I create more impact for the people,
Right.
right? And then when I shifted a little towards the public private partnership and working with government of India, Niti Aayog, on bridging the innovation skill gap of India, again there was an angle towards community, there was an angle towards tech.
Right.
And 5 years into the game, I actually felt that, I'm someone who would love to be closer to tech and closer to people. I don't think so. I want to move away from any of it. Right.
Exactly.
And then that's where I was like, okay, now how do I either you shape up your journey, or, you try to figure out like-minded people. And that's where I came across this world of developer relations, where, you try to, be very close to tech, and then you work with developers and startups, and that's how my my 5 years flew by. Designing programs where we will interact with Google developer experts. I think that was one of the programs I was leading on. And
Right.
then there was also Google for Startup Accelerator, where we accelerated hundreds of startups. So I think the mission stayed true. That I
Exactly.
enabled people, I empowered them, tried to create something impactful so that we can
Right.
change the world for a to become a better place.
Just the medium changed.
Medium change, exactly.
Right.
And if I
Right.
and by this time I've already hit like decade, like 10 years
Right.
into the game. And then when I reflected back, and then I saw that, okay, with Intel I was able to create impact for like, and happy to share, it was 25th May 2024, last year, on National Technology Day.
Okay.
Our Honorable Prime Minister, he talked about the impact of the program that
Exactly. Yes, yes, I
for
recall.
he mentioned about the impact, and the impact was, so when I started with that program, we were able to launch 10 labs, and
Right.
we touched nearly 1 lakh students. But up until 2014, 2024, which was like 7 8 years into the game, he mentioned the impact of the program. There are 10,000 labs in India right now, which has touched 11 million youth. It's a big number, right? And then
Huge number. Huge.
huge number. And working on the program, I think I felt so satisfied. The impact continues, right? And similarly for DevRel, I think we used to impact like millions of developers, and
Yep.
help startups raise billions of funds. And I think that's what has happened as a as a cumulative effort that we have all put, like the team members and all of us have put together to enable that ecosystem. And I was looking at and I was reflecting on my journey that, okay, my purpose is being, solved, and I'm very close to the tech and
Right.
very close to people. I've impacted like millions on the way. And I was thinking, okay, my first decade is coming to an end. I'm starting my second decade. So the story has to be a little different. Like going from creating an impact for millions to billions. I think that's the one thing which I was looking at, in terms of growth. Still staying true to my mission. I have to, keep enabling, keep empowering people and make this world a better place. And nothing like Google search, right? And
Exactly.
then it's one of the foundational products of Google where
Right.
I I have an opportunity to work on search. We are building the future of search. You're seeing the shifts happening with the technological trends, with the innovation which is happening all around. uh, the mission of Google search is grand, right?
Huge.
Yet it's so simple that
Yep.
we want to make the information of the world more accessible and helpful, but it's still grand with this technological shift that is happening. So I believe that my mission is also so close. Working with
Right.
people, empowering them, enabling, and I got an opportunity now to work with the product teams, with the engineering teams, just with the core mission of making lives of people better in the outside world. And then with a product which has like a billion user scale,
Right.
I think nothing like it. So I think I'm still close to my mission, where I'm
Yeah.
working with tech, and I'm
Work with the
creating
community.
people and working for the community.
Right.
I think this all comes together. It feels different, yes.
It's a different thing altogether.
Yes,
But the
yes,
core
but
mission statement is the same thing.
it's the same. Yes, core mission is same, and I'm fortunate, that I'm getting those opportunities along to work in a different shape and form, but continue to create that impact on
Nice.
from millions to billions.
Yep, it's a nice shift. Like I think the first time I interacted with you, you were working at Intel, as well as a part of the Intel Software Innovator program. That's how we met, and now
Yes,
knowing you for almost like 10 years now, I'd say. That time I
it's
was
a
still in college.
exactly. Look at that. I think last
2015 it was.
yes, last 1.5 year, I have been celebrating decade long milestones.
Yeah.
The career, the community
Yep.
journey, meeting people like yourself. And I'm happy to share that I was also in Madurai last week,
Yep.
on the weekend. That and then I remember where one of the community organizers, Senthil, he mentioned that in 2015 I traveled to Madurai for the first time to set up GDG chapter there, to launch the community chapters over
Right.
there. And it was 2025
You're going
last
there as
week.
a speaker.
Again,
That's
celebrating that decade long
right.
milestone. Super, super happy that
Super nice.
I'm able to create that impact. So and it's not just me, right? I think the reason we are still in touch together, and we still continue to collaborate, we still continue to create impact in the ecosystem with communities. because it speaks a lot about the like-mindedness.
Right,
It's not
right.
just me who is on this track. I think it's also
Exactly.
a reflection of what you are doing, Aviru,
Right.
in terms of trying to create an impact in the ecosystem. The podcast that you started today, it's the first of its kind.
Yes.
The idea is not to just do a podcast series. I think the
Right.
idea is to create impact on not only on millennials but also on the next generation, Gen Z,
Right.
who can also be aware of what technological shifts that have
Exactly.
happened,
What
and
they
then
should understand.
what they should understand. You
Right.
are doing something for the community from the core of your heart. I think that's where the like-mindedness
I
comes.
think that's why we all still a part of the community at the end of the
Yes,
day. I think that's
yes,
what drives us, right? I think same to the point. Like you just mentioned, like we are targeting the youth population, the Gen Z, the
yes,
millennials who wants to get an understanding like where the shift has happened, how they can realign themselves if they're not aligned. So, do you have
yes.
any message in this over if like everyday exponentially evolving world, like any message for these people to, like I have seen a lot of people who are getting a lot disappointed when they're not able to crack interviews, when they're not able to get into jobs, and
Yes,
that's a sad story. Like with everything happening, people need to realign themselves to the correct technology, and then only they can be a value to some other company, right? And that change is happening so rapidly, some people are not able to cope up with it. So do you have any
yes,
message for all those people who are still trying to figure out what I should do and what I should not?
sure. So I think I'll probably take a step back and say that things which have changed a lot definitely is technology, and it is definitely making our lives easier.
Right.
But things which have not changed, Avidu, is how good you are at problem solving, right? How you think, how you approach in terms of your cognitive abilities, and trying to wrap around your head and try to channel not only your logical mind but also your creative mind.
Right.
That is something which cannot be taken away with this technological shift that we see today, right? And then, unfortunately, there was one of the surveys which was done by Harvard University, and then they came up with one of the situations where they asked young students, to write an essay, right? And then, so one of the person and was given access to all the tools in the world, right? The Chat GPT, the Gemini. The second was given access to only Google search, but no AI tools, right? And then the third one was given access to nothing. This person only has to write an essay, and then they tried to survey these people over a period of time, and what they found was the very interesting results, and I probably might have to go back and check the exact numbers, but the ability to go ahead and think in terms of writing an essay, in terms of going ahead and trying to understand what the message can be conveyed in writing your essay, was much higher. The capability, the quotient of coming across with a nice essay was much higher in a person who has never used AI before, or maybe a little help of Google. Probably they would have come up with a nice narration or a nice story around it. But the same person who wrote an essay with access to AI tools, right? Of course, their efficiency is great. Their the
Right.
essay is great. The storyline is great, and all that. And then later they shifted the narrative, right? They shifted the roles. The person who used AI tools in the first go was asked to write essay without access to any AI tools or Google. The quality dropped like anything, right? The quality of writing an essay dropped. So it's a clear indication that AI tools, this technology is here to assist us, not to replace our thought process. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
the new generation, and unfortunately, a couple of millennials also, they try to use this technology as a replacement of their
Right.
solutioning. I think they just write a prompt. I want to, for example, write an email to my boss to say XYZ. Now, what will AI do?
Exactly.
It
Right.
doesn't have context, and it can only give the way you just asked for it. And that's why we always say that the output of your AI tool is as good as the input that you have given, and that is in terms of your prompt. If your prompt is good, if your prompt has context, and if you probably are trying to use technology who can assist your thought process, I think that's the best way to take it forward.
Right.
And that's the reason why you see that, there are a lot of people who are not able to crack interviews. They're not able to, go through those rounds where, general cognitive abilities are tested, generally problem solving approach is tested. Unfortunate is the situation, but I think it's still at the nascent stage. I can be corrected, but I'm sure that this shouldn't turn into a serious concern if
Right.
if it's handled right now. But otherwise, I think we are setting the perfect recipe for disaster if we are
Yes.
just AI tools and not using our brains and not
Right.
using our solving
And I think
skills.
that will kind of change, depends upon a lot on the policies, a lot on the companies, like how they ask everyone to implement AI. It's not just like blindly trusting it, but more like using it as an assistant. That
Yes,
is where we need to define the line. That is where the
absolutely
boundary conditions needs to be defined, I believe.
right.
And
Totally.
even in
Yes.
our day-to-day lives also we do the same thing. So we just use
Yes.
it.
Yes.
We use it
Absolutely.
for assistant a lot, fixing
Yes.
fixing a lot of silly mistakes which we human can easily make,
Correct.
fixing the writing style, fixing all those things. That helps a lot, but not
Right.
like generating an entire article or entire code base. Obviously not. That's not the solution for now.
Although AI has the ability to generate an app on itself, like couple of hours, you tell
Lovable
what
is
is that
there,
app,
Firebase
but we still
Studio.
exactly, and
Right.
those tools are like
Right.
super,
But
they're
that's not good for the human being who is using it.
it's not good for the human being. I'm really looking forward to those days where we can see the change happening and see
Right.
this. But I'm sure that it's not good for the problem solving mindset.
Right.
But at the same time, we still need a debugger, a software engineer who can go and
Exactly.
debug a couple of problems
Right.
the person is making. And without problem skills, problem solving attitude, you can't even go
You
and
cannot,
debug.
exactly,
So
like you
I,
cannot use AI to debug AI.
exactly. I
You
can.
need
I'm
a
sure.
human mind.
I'm sure I can ask a 10th standard student to write a nice prompt, which is also generated by an AI tool
Right.
to generate an app. But
Exactly.
but you need a software engineer to go ahead and debug.
Right.
Where so that means one thing which is totally irreplaceable is your problem solving mindset,
Exactly.
your attitude towards how do you look at things. It's not just about the logical part of things. I think it's also about your creative part of it. How creatively you look around the solution for. I think that's how it goes.
Yep. Cool then. Thanks a lot, Anuj, for
Of
doing
course,
this first podcast. I
I'm
enjoyed a
super
lot.
happy. Of
Yes.
course, man. I think, of course, we this is the first podcast, and I
Right.
wish you all the very best for rest of the podcasts that are going to come in future,
Thank you.
and all the best for the series. I am super happy to be here to share my insights. Again, these
Right.
disclaimer is that it's my point of view, but
Exactly.
at the
It's
same
right.
at the same time it's the world, and interesting to see that how this world will shape in front of our
Right.
eyes. We were shaped by internet, and we had not a lot of things to do, but
Right.
today we are very reflective, and we are
Exactly.
we are probably the ones who can also
A
make
lot
this
of
shift.
new technologies are coming into picture. A lot of new fundamental things are coming into picture, which is
Yes.
changing the way of how we work and think. So I believe
Yeah.
we'll see a lot of interesting things in the future, and it's a perfect
Yes.
time to be alive, I would say.
Absolutely,
Perfect
absolutely.
time.
And just a message to the audience: stay tuned for all the amazing nuggets that Avirup is going to drop
Thanks a lot.
through these podcast series. And I'm sure you're going to love it all, because it's not just about talking about tech, where the tech is going. It's a real candid stories that you can hear
Exactly.
from people, from their journeys and what they feel. Again, these are point of views, but happy to witness, as Avirup mentioned, happy to be alive in these times where we can witness the change happening and we are a part of it.
Thanks a lot, Anuj. Thanks a lot for coming here, and like I'm sure we'll meet again.
Of course, of
And that time
course.
we'll have a face-to-face conversation, not a virtual one.
Looking forward to it.
Right.
See you on
Perfect.
the other side, man. Yeah, see you
Yes.
then.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.